Welcome to the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Rudolph, and this is episode 128. And we've got a morning show today because today our guest is from across the pond. We've got Elijah Everill, who just won his karate combat debut in stunning fashion, knockout in less than a minute. It was a work of art, a thing of beauty. And we're going to talk about that and a lot more here in this episode. But first and foremost, Elijah, I want to thank you for coming on the show and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, because a lot of people in our Black Belt Magazine audience are going to know you now as Elijah Everill, karate combat fighter, as they should, right? But I know you as Elijah Everill, the point fighter, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey and introduce yourself to us, and then we'll get into the show.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Jackson, for having me on again. It's great to be back on the show. Obviously I come from a sport karate background. I started training when I was 4 years old at Lee Matthews Black Belt Academy. And I've been training ever since with him, and I've come up through the ranks, done many competitions over the years, internationally, nationally, won many world titles, grand champions in Europe, in the States. So I've had a pretty successful sport karate career, and now I'm transitioning through to doing the full contact and doing karate combat as well. That came about a few months ago, back in the beginning of the year, when I decided to go down this path. It's been great so far. I had my first fight last week, and like you said in the beginning, I managed to get a first round finish. So it's been going great so far. Look forward to continuing on.
Awesome. And I know that everybody that's tuning in right now is going to see this question coming, so we're going to get it out of the way first, right?
Yeah.
It's like a 49-second fight in total. Take us through it from your perspective. What are you seeing on your end, and what's that experience like, when the ref is waving his hands and it's a knockout?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was an amazing experience from start to finish. The whole fight week was it was incredible. We had such a great time. But as for the fight, I mean, like, the second that we arrived there at the arena, what I really loved, it was like you were treated like a rock star straight away. Like they pick you up in this like blacked out SUV, the drivers playing the Rocky tunes in the car, like he had Going the Distance on and Eye of the Tiger. So he's already getting you pumped up, ready for action. And then when you turn up at the arena, there's like a huge representative of karate combat guys there, and they're all shaking your hand, greeting you when you walk in. You get showed to your locker room, your dressing room. They show you the warm-up area, and then obviously the entrance to the pit and everything. So yeah, it was amazing. Then I got my hand wraps by the Florida Athletic State Commission, and you start warming up and you get ready to go. The second that I walked through the doors and I saw the pit, I was like, yeah, this is it. Come on, like it felt like home. It really did. It was an awesome feeling. And then as soon as the fight started, really, I felt very comfortable in there. No nerves whatsoever, just totally comfortable. I felt like I really belonged in there. And we started the fight. He was he was twitching a lot. He was moving his hands a lot. He was throwing some calf kicks and things like that. So I was just biding my time and waiting for the right moment. I thought I controlled the distance very well in the beginning to sort of neutralize some of his strikes. He couldn't really hit me. And then when I decided to engage, I landed some really clean shots. I hit him with a hook to the head, which had him sort of stumbling back. And then he tried to grab me, I think because he was hurt. I think he was trying to grab me to buy himself some time. But I was able to shove him off and stop the takedown. And then I hit him with a flurry of punches. And as he was moving back towards the pit, I saw his head go down, and he was at the perfect distance and the perfect height for me to throw my kick. And I landed my kick clean on the chin, and that put him away. And then I just finished it off with some ground and pound. And yeah, just overwhelming emotion when you see the referee jump in there and wave it off. It was incredible. And I looked back towards my corner. Actually, I came out of it off the side of the pit wall, and I looked over to the other side, which was my corner. I saw my dad going crazy. I saw Ray and Tyler Wombles both jumping out of their chairs, going absolutely crazy. And I just took it in for a little moment before I climbed up the pit wall and gave them a hug, because it was just an incredible feeling, something that I'll never forget, and I'll treasure it forever.
I can only imagine. And you break down the knockout itself so beautifully, step by step. You know, when I watched it, it reminded me. Have you seen the Donald Cerrone knockout where he throws like the hand
Yes.
combo and then it's followed up?
Yeah.
It reminded me of that. It's like
Yeah. I didn't think of that actually, but it is quite similar. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. It's like that Cerrone knockout is like one of the great knockouts in MMA history in terms of just like a pure combo, right? Everybody
Yeah.
talks about the McGregor, punches on Alvarez, right? But really that
Yes.
Cerrone combo is like textbook striking in terms
Yeah.
of linking together the punches with the kick. And that's what that combo reminded me of. So
Yeah.
the other question I had regarding the knockout, right? You mentioned that you noticed some of his tendencies early in the fight. He's trying to throw some calf kicks, was a little twitchy with his motion, right? Do you ever expect a fight to end that quickly? Is this something where you went into it thinking, okay, I could try to pressure early and try to get a knockout in round one? Or, I mean, how is it scripted in your head, if at all? Or do you just kind of take it as it comes to you?
I think with this one, I sort of just took it as it came to me because it was actually quite difficult to find a lot out about my opponent. He'd never competed in karate combat before, so it wasn't like I could go on YouTube and check out any karate combat fights. I was having to really dig deep through the archives and stuff to try and find things on him. I found out that he's been doing traditional karate for a very long time, so he was experienced. So I sort of had to I also found out his YouTube channel and things like that, where he'd had like training videos on there, and so I was having to kind of guess what he would be like. So I was obviously trying to prepare the best I could with the information that I had. So I didn't know how good he was going to be. I was just going to get in the pit. I had an idea of what he was going to throw, but really it just came to me. And like I said in the post-fight interview, I always try and look for the finish as early as possible. That's a bonus if I can get that, but I was anticipating a longer fight. I was ready for 3 rounds or 4 rounds, and I was ready for a battle in there, but it turned out that I ended up getting a stoppage, so I'm more than happy with that.
And it's an interesting perspective because you talk about not being able to find any film on your opponent, whereas on his side, he probably found all kinds of film about you. You know what I'm saying? Especially
Yeah.
point fighting and sport karate clips in particular. And that's
Yeah.
something I want to give you the opportunity to speak about is the fact that, yes, like within the sport karate community, we all know you as Elijah Everill, the point fighter, or at least in America, because that's what we've seen you do over here. But in Europe, Waco kickboxing. I'm sure you've done various other kickboxing type events. I know that you train boxing a lot. So you have those other styles of combat sports under your belt. Can you speak a little bit to that transition? Because I think that your opponent might have expected, because a lot of the karate combat marketing was about you having been a point fighter, right? And so he's probably expecting a point fighting look, but then obviously you come out there with the explosiveness of a point fighter, but the stance and everything else very different, right? So talk about kind of switching between combat sports and where does point fighting come in to be the most helpful in the pit?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually talking about this over there in Miami as well with Raymond. When I started doing competitions, I always trained points and continuous, always. And even back when I was a kid, I remember people saying to me, "Oh, you shouldn't do that because your continuous is going to mess with your points. If you do boxing, it's going to mess with your points. It's going to slow you down. You're not going to have the footwork. You're not going to have this. You're not going to have that." And I never ever believed that. And neither did my dad. Neither did my coaches. We always just stuck to being a well-rounded martial artist. That was always my goal. Was I don't want to just be a point fighter. I want to be able to do everything. I want to be able to hold my own in lots of different areas. And so I always trained continuous from when I started doing competitions. And that's obviously stood me in great stead, having lots of experience in continuous on the mats. My style obviously comes from the point fighting background, but I try and blend the two. So I have the point fighting that I can go to, which is great because not many, well, very, very few full contact fighters actually understand that game. And they don't understand it in the way that me and Ray and Ross and Robbie do anyway, up to that level. Even if they've seen it before, they're not going to understand it on the level that we do. So it's an amazing advantage to have that and know that you've got that in your locker because you can pull that out at any time and dominate a match. You can always resort back to that. But having the other things there as well that go hand in hand with it, like training my boxing. I started boxing when I was like 10 years old. So, and now, I've been doing it for 14, 15 years. and I've had many fights in the boxing ring as well. I've trained full contact, I've trained MMA before. So, the transition for me wasn't really that difficult because I do this all the time anyway. Obviously, the pit is a different environment. It's something new. I've never had a fight in karate combat like this before, so there was elements that were new to me. But I wouldn't say that it was like a really hard transition because, like you said, I'm not just a point fighter. People know me as that because that's where I've had most of my success and most of my competitions have been within point fighting. But yeah, I'm definitely able to do a lot more than that, and yeah, I definitely recommend it to other fighters out there as well. Don't let people tell you that you only have to specialize in one thing. If you're good enough, you put the time in, you put the dedication in, then you can do it all. I mean, Raymond Daniels done it, Ross Levine's done it, Michael Page has done it. There's plenty of others that are doing it now, and I'm looking forward to following down those footsteps of those guys.
That's a great point, and we're excited to see you on that journey. You mentioned the Karate Combat Pit and that being a new environment for a number of reasons, but I do want to talk about just physically, right? Having the 45-degree angled wall, feel like that was probably pretty hard to recreate in terms of training space, unless, I don't know if like Wombles has already set that up in his gym somewhere or something. But I mean, what was that like? Is that something that you wanted to use? Is it just so unique that you find yourself drawn to wanting to use it? Or is it so different that you're like, I want to keep it flat until I've had some more karate combat fights and then I can play with it more?
Yeah, I mean, well, we actually had like a pit walkthrough the day before the card, so we were able to have a play around in there for like 20 minutes. We were going through some stuff with Ray. Obviously, he'd been in there before. Ross was there as well, so he was giving me some advice on, not putting myself against the pit wall, because if you are against the pit wall, you're pretty much defenseless. Like, there's nothing you can do. You're in a very, very vulnerable spot. So Ray was showing me a couple of different ways of how to get out of trouble, really, and how to escape the pit wall. So that was defensively, and then obviously offensively, it's very easy to land combinations there because you're sort of slanted, so you haven't really got any kind of base. It's very easy to throw like calf kicks and sweep your opponent. Very easy to punch from there. I mean, my finish actually came very close to the pit wall. My opponent couldn't stay on his feet, so I think if you're aggressive and you can push people back, it's a great tool to have. But obviously, you've got to be able to defend yourself as well and know how to get out of trouble and use it to your advantage defensively too.
For sure. And one thing that I noticed in watching the slow-mo back is at the end of that flurry, when you've got him, I mean, he was laying like up against, he was like right in the corner of where, two of those angled walls come together.
Yeah.
And one thing, they were actually talking about this on Inside Scoop, which is Alex Dingman and Jeff Doss show last night. They were talking about how, like, at the end of that combo, you brought your foot up for like an axe kick, stomp, something or other.
Yeah.
And then you pulled it back. Was that because you noticed that he was out, or what? I mean, what did you? Or were you afraid that you'd get disqualified because you weren't sure how much he was down? Like, what was going through your head there that made you pull back on that?
Yeah, so I obviously landed the kick. I saw he was down, and my next instinct was to go for like a stomp. But I midway through, and again, I think I made the right decision because midway through, I had a thought in my head about getting disqualified because earlier on I know on the coverage they said that it would have been a legal strike, but earlier on that day we had the fighters briefing and they told us that if they were like crouched down against the pit wall, that you couldn't kick them, you could only punch them. So I made a decision really quickly just to play it safe because I obviously didn't want to like do that KO and then end up getting a no contest or something or being disqualified. That would have been heartbreaking for me. So I just wanted to play it safe and go with the punches. There was no real need to kick him when he was down anyway. He was out. So yeah, I just played it safe, finished it off with some punches instead.
Right. And I think that's a testament to your fight IQ, right? Because for you to be able to process that and have that thought when things are moving 100 miles an hour, you're in the middle of a knockout and knowing exactly when to pull back. I mean, as martial artists, just generally, that's what we teach, right? Is knowing self-control, having that discipline, knowing when it's time to stop, right? And so I think that that's a testament to your presence, your awareness. I think that was actually a really cool feature of what kind of happened at the end of the fight. And speaking of cool stuff, right? I do want to have a chance to talk about just some of the people that you got to meet, right? Like a lot of those guys that are helping make Karate Combat happen. GSP, Boss Rutan, Robin Black, like a lot of like big name people who are helping make this happen. So tell us a little bit about that experience. There were also plenty of people in the crowd that were some pretty big names in combat sports. So who were some of your favorite people that you got to meet, maybe even for the first time? Just kind of brag to us about the new friends that you've made.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, even before I came out here, I think it was a couple of days before Adam Kovac, the league president, posted on his social media that GSP was going to be commentating on the show. So I was already excited about that. And I actually had a magazine cover as well from years ago when I used to buy Fighters Only magazine. And GSP was on the front cover. So I had that, and I made sure I packed it to get it signed by him. Luckily, I did end up getting it signed by him as well. I was quite lucky. I actually met GSP the first time at the ceremony weigh-ins. I saw him just hanging around, and then I was just waiting until the end of the weigh-ins really, so I could grab him for like 2 seconds. And I had a picture with him and Ray, and I had a picture with him on my own. And it was actually his birthday as well, so we wished him a happy birthday. But then the next day, when it was actually the fight day, he was obviously commentating, and they were live, and I went up to one of the guys, like a security guard who was hanging around there, and I had my magazine cover with me. And at first, the security guard was like, "No, you can't do it. He's live at the moment. He can't do anything." And GSP moved to the side and said, "No, it's okay. Bring him over." And I brought it over to him then, and so he signed it for me without saying anything because he was on air. And when I got it back, I read it, and it just said "amazing, mate," and then signed it GSP. So that's a pretty cool story. If anyone ever asks me about why he put "amazing," I could say, well, he actually called one of my fights, and I ended up getting a stoppage. So yeah, that was awesome. And then I saw after my fight as well, Mike Perry was in the VIP section. I got to say hello to Mike Perry, met him. He actually said, I actually went up to him and I said, "Oh, Mike Perry, I'm a big fan." And I shook his hand, and he said, "Oh, I'm a big fan of you too. You nearly kicked that guy's face off." So yeah, that was really cool as well. Andrei Orlovsky was in there. He was actually pit side for my knockout as well. And yeah, it was funny because I'd seen earlier on he was on his phone most of the time playing Candy Crush, which was funny. And I think like one of the moments where he actually was watching, I ended up doing the finish, and he sort of reacted. So that was good. I must have caught his attention somehow. So that was good. And yeah, there's plenty of superstars there. It was great to be able to meet them all. And yeah, I'm still a big fan of all of them. So it was great.
That's awesome. I love it. And, one thing that I guess all of the sport karate fans who are tuning in and have been like listening to these stories, obviously the entire community is super proud of you. But the thing that everybody within the point fighting community is worried about is like, wait a minute, are we not going to get to see him point fight anymore? Right. So how does that look for you? There was mention of an exclusive contract. Are you still able to do point fighting, or is it something that you're going to choose not to do? Or are you going to keep coming out and doing it? Kind of what is the stance on where point fighting is going to be for you, at least for the time being?
Yeah, I'm still able to point fight in my contract, so it's not a problem. I actually have a Waco Pro title fight coming up, which is a 7-round match. So this is a totally different format. Waco Pro, they're bringing it back now. So I'm fighting against an Italian in July. So I'm really excited for that one. There's some slightly different rules, but obviously the big one is the 7 2-minute rounds. So I'm going to be doing that. I'll be preparing for that pretty soon. And getting the point fighting training in. But yeah, I mean, I can do whatever point fighting tournaments that I want to do. Obviously, if there's a Karate Combat card in the pipeline and they need me on a show, then that will be first priority. But yeah, I'm still going to be doing my point fighting, still keeping it sharp, of course.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. I know that all the sport karate fans tuning in love to hear that. And about this Waco Pro thing, is that kickboxing or point fighting? Because you mentioned 7 2-minute rounds?
Point fighting, 7 rounds, yes.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
you got to tell us a little bit more about that while we're on it, right? I mean, that's crazy, right? I think most point fighters can't imagine, like, obviously people train for more rounds than 7, right? But in terms of like being in the ring, one opponent for 7 2-minute rounds, tell
Yeah.
us about that.
Well, we've been having meetings about it recently, discussing the rules and everything, because Wacko Pro was around a long time ago, but they've not really been doing a lot with it in recent years. So this is like the first comeback of Wacko Pro events. It's being put on by Wacko GB as well. So it's myself, Evelyn Nayans, and Chris Aston. We're all doing Wacko Pro world title fights. We all have Italian opponents for this event. So yeah, it's something that's really cool. There's a fantastic belt up for grabs, the Wacko Pro World Title, and yeah, it's a 7-round match. I believe that's no shirt, no head guard, and then I think all the other Wacko rules are the same. It's full contact. I believe you can hit as hard as you want. All the other Wacko rules are the same though. No 10-point spread, so the match will just keep going for 7 rounds. So yeah, obviously you're gonna have to make sure my conditioning is great. Train slightly differently for those longer rounds, but it's something that's really interesting, and I look forward to getting in there and doing that. And the great thing is, it's on home soil as well. It's in Nottingham, so it's like an hour and 15 minutes from my house. So it'll be great to be able to perform in front of all the UK guys.
That's really cool. I can't wait. Do you know, is there going to be a way for us to watch that? Is it going to be streamed anywhere? Or?
I believe it'll be live stream. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure who's going to be streaming it yet, but I believe it will definitely be live stream. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we'll stay tuned to that. Everybody make sure that you're staying tuned to Elijah's social media pages. He's on Facebook, Instagram. So hopefully we can see some announcements so that we can watch those crazy fights. Definitely. Shifting back to karate combat, right? I want to talk about kind of the path to the belt. And I know it was your debut. It was your first fight. But when you win in spectacular fashion, and when you got a coach who's in the title picture, right, and you got Ross Levine, who's already holding a belt from a sport karate background, right, that's the conversation that people are going to start getting at. So we'll start with kind of the lowest level question, which is, how many fights do you think it'll take? Are we looking at 2 more wins and then a title shot? Like what, or do you have any idea?
So my division is the lightweight division, and it's stacked. It's probably the best division in karate combat, I'd say, for like depth of talent in there. So there's a lot of different opponents that I could face off with next. Obviously, I didn't really have much time in the pit this time round. I had 49 seconds. So I really want to get some more fights under my belt before I start thinking about the title picture. For this contract, I have 4 fights with an optional 2 fights over a 2-year contract. So I would like to fulfill this contract and do all of the fights without having a title fight on this contract, so I can really develop my experience inside of the pit. And then in the next contract, I would obviously, hoping that all of these fights are going to be wins. In the next contract, I would like a title fight in that one, I think. But being sensible and I think is the right thing to do, taking the time, getting experience, having a few fights in there, and then working my way up that way.
I love that. I think that's a great strategy, and making sure that you've got all the experience in the pit under your belt, so that when it's time for that moment, you can capitalize on it. And one thing, because I mentioned this when I wrote up the Black Belt Magazine article, and I don't remember where I saw it. I don't know if it was something that was mentioned on the broadcast, or if there was maybe a web page that was just labeled wrong or something like that. But at one point, I had thought that you were fighting welterweight. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Ray's calling out the welterweight champ. So are we looking at like Elijah and Ray trying to take over that division? But it sounds like you'll be in lightweights. And as far as you know, are you kind of the only point karate guy in the lightweights right now?
Yeah, so they did make a mistake on that, on the coverage. I watched it back, and they said that I was a welterweight when actually I am a lightweight. I fought at 150 pounds, which was 68 kg. So Ray is in the weight above. And I believe his fight this time was a catchweight fight as well, as like between welter and middleweight. But yeah, I'm going to be in the lightweight division, and I am the only point fighting guy, as far as I'm aware, in the lightweight division, which is incredible, because we were talking about this in Miami as well. It'd be really cool to do a card with Robbie at bantamweight, me at lightweight, Ray at welterweight and Ross at middleweight. And we even thought about maybe doing like a sport karate versus traditional karate. So you could have like the best traditional guy in the lightweight division or the bantamweight division, and we could face off against them in like a team sort of card. That would be pretty cool. We did have a few cool ideas that maybe Karate Combat might want to go down, but yeah, it's great to have us all in separate divisions. And what we want is we want all of our guys to be the champions of each division, and I think that could really happen as well.
Absolutely. There's certainly a path to it. And sign me up for that card, by the way, because in that setup, right, we're going to get the Ray and Agaev rematch, right? Which
exactly,
I think Ray wins. I know that I'm biased, but I think Ray wins that rematch, right?
Me too.
So, I mean, of course we do, right? But, I do think when I had Ross on the show a couple of months ago, when I was talking to Ross about it, with Ross and Ray coming up together, the conversation about them was always like, oh, is somebody going to try to become champ with a Ross and Ray fight when that, so everybody was speculating about that. But I loved Ross's perspective. He was like, why would we want 1 point karate guy holding 2 of the belts when we can have as many point karate guys as possible holding the belts of karate combat and kind of proving that what we do can translate. And I think that what you described, even with Robbie down at bantamweight, like I think that you're right. It absolutely could happen.
Yeah, and I think it would be amazing for that to happen. We're all very close. The 4 of us are all very close. We're good friends. So I don't think any of us would really have an interest in fighting each other, especially not me and Ray. We're like brothers, and same for me and Robbie. There's absolutely no way in hell any of us would ever fight each other with no amount of money, no nothing. We're like family, so we would never fight against each other in the pit. Sport karate is different, but for the karate combat, we wouldn't be doing that. We want to try and help each other out and push each other to greatness. And hopefully we'll have 4 belts from 4 different sport karate guys. That's what the goal is.
I can't wait. That's awesome. I love it. So I want to talk about Ray a little bit because obviously we mentioned his names a few times, as was going to happen, right? And, one thing that really impressed me was Ray had a fight in the co-main, was a big fight for him, right? Obviously he went out there and in my opinion made it look easy, right? But in the grand scheme of things, coming off of a loss, like that was a big fight. Like that was a fight he needed to go out there and win to kind of reproject himself into that title shot, be able to call out Quayhagen and that entire thing, right? So that was a huge fight. And when you were up, he was there ringside watching you fight, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, because as far as I know, there's not many full contact guys in any realm of combat sports that if they had a fight in the co-main would be out there watching one of the prelim fight for one of their guys, right? So speak a little bit to that, and also just tell us what training with Ray is like.
Yeah, so we found out the order of the fights, and I believe originally I was supposed to be on 5th fight, but it ended up being the 4th fight of the card, and obviously Ray was going to be second to last, being the co-main event. I actually asked Ray a couple of weeks before we flew to Miami if it would be possible to have him coach, and he agreed straight away. He was like, yeah, of course, I'm there for you 100%. Originally it was supposed to be my dad cornering me and Raymond, and then when we got to the arena, Ray was there ready to coach me. We got to the dressing room, but the Florida Athletic State Commission said that Ray is not able to be my coach because he didn't have a Florida State Athletic Commission coach's license, whereas Tyler Wombles did. And Tyler's been great, by the way. He's amazing. I mean, I've met him before a few times, but we really got to bond this week and connect and do some great training together. So that was awesome. And then obviously my dad had one because Karate Combat set that up when I told him they were going to be coaching. But yeah, because Ray was fighting, he didn't have a license. But he said, like, Tyler will take you through. And obviously I had my dad there. And then Ray said, but I am going to be standing literally right next to those guys anyway. Like, I'm going to get as close as I can to the pit. You'll probably be able to hear me better than Tyler and my dad. And he was right there with me every step of the way. He walked out behind me. And he's so good at getting you in that zone. There's nobody better at getting you in the zone than Raymond. The way he talks to himself is unbelievable. But then when he was talking to me, he was just really gets you in that zone where you just feel unbeatable. You feel invincible after he's been giving you that energy. And yeah, so he's amazing to have there behind me and to have him supporting me. And yeah, wouldn't be here without him. So huge credit to Raymond. He's like a brother. And as for training wise, it's his work ethic is just like mine. This is why we get on so well. He really does remind me a lot of ways in myself. Even to the point of like what we like to eat and stuff is so similar. And that's why it's great for him to give me so much advice, because he's been there and done it all before. And he knows, like, even like with our frame, we're very similar in our frame. We're tall, we're lanky, we have a lot of the same attributes with our movement and stuff like that. So when he's giving me insight into that stuff and information, it's very easy for me to translate that across into my game. So whenever I get a chance to train with Ray, I always go up levels. And I had a good solid week of training with him in Miami, a little bit of sparring in there, and he gave me some absolute top-notch advice. So yeah, it was amazing. We got on so well. There's a great connection between us, and like I said, he's like a brother. He's always been there for me since I was a kid, and he's still riding with me now. So, and that'll never change. We'll always be like that.
That's amazing, and an incredible story, right? From your first chance, getting a chance to train with Ray when you were a kid, and the way that you've kind of gone on that journey and transformed into who you are today. Really special to see that come to fruition. And then, of course, you were ringside for Ray's actual fight, which was a striking clinic through and through, right? The spinning back kick that blasted the guy in round 2. I say the guy, former UFC fighter Sasha Paletnikov, right? That blasted him with that spinning back kick in round 2. Those left leg round kicks that were just chopping away at the guy's ribs, right? So tell us a little bit about seeing that fight up close and just watching Ray do his thing.
Yeah, I thought it was a perfect fight for him. He just, that Sasha, he's tough. He's really tough. And Ray actually said to me beforehand, he said that he's really excited for this fight because he knows Sasha's actually going to come forward and try and fight Ray. That plays more into Ray's hands than it would be if he was fighting a more defensive style fighter. So Ray was able to just, it was exactly how I thought it was going to go. Ray was just able to pick him off, control the distance. He hit him with some beautiful body kicks. And in my opinion, the spinning back kick that he hit him with, that should have been the end of the fight there, because he pretty much curled up into a ball. There was nothing. He wasn't actively defending himself. I know Ray took his time walking over to him to try and finish, but I honestly think that the fight should have been stopped there, to be honest. But yeah, he put on a clinic. He always does. I'm looking forward to seeing the K Hagen and the Agaev fight, and then Raymond fighting the winner.
Yeah, that's what I want to see too. I think it was one of the lightweights. I guess it was Souza defended his belt, right?
It was Souza versus Rocha, and Rocha won.
It was Rocha, right? I got him mixed
Rocha
up.
Won.
Yeah. Rocha defended his belt, right? Exactly. But then he made a call out too, and I was like, I'd rather see Ray get that fight. You know what I mean? But,
yeah, definitely. And I think it will go that way. I think. Okay. Ray will probably be next in line to fight the winner of Agaev and K Hagen.
Good. I love that. Shifting back to sport karate, as I know we've kind of jumped back and forth a lot. But granted, me being an American sport karate guy, a lot of my audience for the podcast happens to be American sport karate guys, right? So I just wanted to ask, obviously we're like midway through the NASCA season. It basically runs year round at this point. And I just wanted to know, you obviously predominantly a Waco fighter when you do point fight, but you've been known to come across the pond, won the US Open and won the Ocean States. Like, you've been to some of these top sport karate tournaments in America. How much do you pay attention to the tournaments that are going on when you don't necessarily have like a planned trip coming up? Do you kind of keep tabs on who's winning some of the tournaments over here, or is it not really on your radar?
No, I'm still active in the sport, so I do keep tabs on things that are happening. I've been looking at a couple of the events that have been happening in Europe as well, and obviously in the States. I was actually planning on coming to Quebec Open. Not many people knew that, but I was actually going to come. It was just a couple of weeks before my karate combat debut. So unfortunately, that took priority, and I ended up doing that. But I had spoken to Sam before that and organised with Robbie as well that I would come over. But yeah, it didn't work out this time. But hopefully, I'll be at some NASCAR events soon and back in the point fighting as well.
And that's what I'm saying, man. We all want to see you over here. So nothing planned as of now, but you're definitely open to it.
Yeah, nothing planned as of now, but yeah, I'll speak to the team, see where they're looking to go this year, and yeah, hopefully get some more in.
Awesome. And one thing that always comes up whenever your name is mentioned over here, and deservedly so, is the fact that you are one of, if not the fastest blitzers in the world. Like the ability that you have to explode off the line with that blitz, the depth of the stance that you get into when you're setting it up is ridiculous. And then obviously your reach just makes it that much more dangerous, right? So one question I wanted to ask is, from your perspective, who are some of the fastest blitzers, right? We'll go ahead and say, okay, Elijah Everill is the fastest blitz in the world, right? If you had to list three after that, like who are the guys that you look at or you share the ring with and you're like, hey, they're pretty fast too?
Are we talking about now, or would you say like over, like active fighters?
Take it wherever you want to take it.
Because I would say the ones that stand out in my mind for the fastest people I've ever seen would be Gregorio Di Leo from Italy. Grillo was so fast. I would say Laszlo Gombos. And then I would also say Robbie Lavoie. They would probably be the top three if we're going pure speed. Yeah. Like I think obviously Ray, Jack, Bailey, they're lightning quick, right? But they got great timing as well. But I think if you're talking about like purely speed from point A to point B, I'd probably say like the ones that stand out in my mind, Grillo, Gombos, and Robbie. But yeah, it's minuscule amount of time, isn't it, between them? But yeah, I'd say they're probably the three fastest ever. And then like active fighters, obviously you got Bailey. He's very, very fast. Borislav Radulov, he's so quick as well. He's very light as well, very, very light and quick on his feet with his movement, and then his blitz is ridiculously fast as well. So there's a lot of great talent and a lot of great blitzers out there. It's nice to compete against them, see who's the fastest.
That's awesome. And like you said, I mean, the difference between these guys is minuscule, because to be a great point fighter, you got to be fast. Like baseline, it's a sport that's about speed and timing. So if you're not elite with your speed at some level, then you're probably not going to be able to keep up, right?
Yeah.
But definitely an honor to be mentioned amongst like the people who are the fastest of the fastest. I remember watching Borislav on the VFT card recently, right?
Yeah.
I know there were a few people that didn't wind up fighting, but I definitely remember like studying Borislav tape, like leading up to VFT at the very least, right? And I was impressed not only with his speed, but just with his overall style, just a very entertaining style of fighter. And so I want to shift the question a little bit from just talking about speed to like when you look at point fighters, both of yesterday and of today, right? Who are some of the guys that you just love to sit down and watch, like the most entertaining point fighters to you? Obviously Ray, but who else?
Yeah. Honestly, I would put Borislav up there, Bobo. Because he's just so creative. He's so creative, and he's one of my best friends as well. He's another guy I've known for a very long time. I've known about his ability for a very long time. And some of the things that he comes up with, like I remember he came over to train with me when we were kids, and I'd never seen anybody do this move, but somebody was kicking at him at the gym, like pumping machine gun kicks at his head, and he went underneath the leg, looked over his front shoulder, and swung up his back leg and hit this guy with like a scorpion kick underneath the leg. And I was like, what did I just witness? That was just unbelievable. Nobody saw it coming, but like the whole gym just stopped and was like, what was that? That was incredible. And then not only that, but we did a competition a few days later that he was going to as well. And the same thing happened. And this guy comes out pumping his leg, Bobo goes under the leg, comes up with a scorpion kick, and it's just everyone's going crazy. Like some of the things that he does, it's incredible, honestly. And he's landed it on top opponents as well.
Yeah.
He can sweep, he can go under the leg, he can spin, he can pretty much do everything. He's got a great little highlight reel going on. So yeah, he's very entertaining to watch. I'm really proud of him and to see him doing as well as he is.
Mm-hmm. And the scorpion kick in particular is like such an entertaining technique to see landed. There's a few here in the States that throw it really well. There's one highlight that keeps surfacing on Instagram of Tomas getting hit with one, which pains me because that's my boy, right? But Tyreek Saint nailed Tomas with one that was just like,
yeah, he's also very good at it. It was we did a training camp together at Jardy's, and him and Bailey did a seminar that was really good, and Tyreek was showing us how he was setting that up as well, which was very interesting. I like his fight IQ. Very clever the way he did that, and I've seen him land it countless times.
Yeah, for sure. And then a more recent one that I saw, I got to post this on the Paul Mitchell page soon. But one of our junior fighters, Jake Mueck, who's a student of Trevor's. I don't know if you know him, but Jake, he was fighting at the Infinity National Championships recently, and he hit a guy with it, like the whole like step through and throw the scorpion, and it was crazy. So while we're talking about some of these favorite techniques, right? Everybody knows that you can rack up 15 points on people with the blitz, right? What's your favorite non-blitz technique to just nail somebody with?
It's got to be a spinning back kick, 100%. Yeah, like I like to throw it when someone's kicking, especially if they've got the same leg forward. So if we're chest to chest and they start pumping the leg, like I love to do a spinning back kick on the leg, and you can catch them to the body or catch them to the face. That's probably my favorite technique. Obviously, you're not going to land it as often as a blitz, but I do like to throw it in there every now and again against the kicker.
Spoken like a true disciple of Raymond Daniels, huh?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So getting back to some of these topics, like in the American point fighting scene, right? One thing, I had Bailey on my show for the last episode about a week and a half ago, and we talked about this a little bit too, and that is a big topic of like debate in American point fighting right now is the out of bounds rule and the way that that's used on NASCA, the whole discussion of fighting out and, can somebody, should the fight still go on if somebody's got 1 foot out of bounds? Should it be a penalty point? Right. Where obviously we mostly use 6x6 mats, whereas in Waco, you guys are always using 7x7, I think is the standard. Right. So just talk a little bit about when you have fought in the States, have you noticed that to be an issue with regard to the out of bounds rule? And just what's your kind of opinion on that more generally?
I think it's not just limited to America. It's also a problem in Europe. It's also a problem in Waco. And for me, I think, and it's not just the out of bounds rule. I think that definitely is something that needs to be fixed, but it can be other things as well. But I think there's too many gray areas within the rules and not enough clarity. There's not enough black and white there. Like rules should be black and white for me. And I think that would make it a lot easier for the fighters, and it would also make it a lot easier for the officials. There'd be less judgment. It'd just be clearer. It'd save time with arguments and everything. Like if you just made the rules clear and black and white. So if you go out of the area, in my opinion, if you go out of the area, you go out of bounds, that's a minus point. It doesn't matter how you go out. It doesn't matter if you step out, whether you're kicked out, whether you're fighting out. If you go out, you should get a minus point. That way, no one can really say anything. It's there for everybody to see. You went out, minus point. Same thing needs to happen for touching the ground. Same thing needs to happen for touching the ground because there's far too much diving to kill time, and they're in a bad position, so they go down, and then the fight resets, and it's killing the sport. These kinds of tactics that's manipulating the rules. So, in my opinion, to make life easy for everyone, for the fighters, for the officials, for the referees, let's just make it clear, black and white. If you touch the ground, then it's a minus point. If you go out of the area, it's a minus point. And back to the touching the ground thing, like a key component of being a good martial artist is having good balance. If you can't keep your balance, or the opponent's kick is stronger than your kick, and you go down, then the opponent's done their job of doing a better kick than you. You've got to be able to keep your balance and stay on your feet and fight. That's that should be the rule for me. I think the stricter that it is, the more enjoyable it's going to be, the less timeouts there's going to be, less arguments. And I think that's the way to go, is just keep it more professional like that.
I couldn't agree more. And one thing that I want to touch on, because here in the States, a lot of people are very critical of the NASCAR rule and the gray area that's introduced to it. And a lot of the discussions have been focused on, well, hey, if we had 7x7s, then it wouldn't be as much of a problem, or if this and if that. So one thing that I think is really valuable for the American conversation is, you're saying, as predominantly a Waco fighter, even in Waco, with the 7x7s, with the rule worded differently, where I think the rule for Waco is a little bit more strict currently than the NASCAR rule, you're saying even over there, there's still gray area and it's still an issue.
Yeah, because I see it all the time when a fight will be in the corner or something and they'll get pushed, they'll get kicked out. But, these fighters are very clever. They even drill this, where they'll go in a corner and someone will pump their leg and they'll like almost take the contact and jump out, right? Yeah. So that then they end up going back into the middle of the ring. So to get rid of this like game playing, manipulating the rules, let's just make it black and white. If you go out, you're out, minus point. Doesn't matter if you're pushed out, doesn't matter if you step out, doesn't matter if you fight out. Let's just have a minus point, and then nobody can complain. And it's the same thing with touching the ground. The other thing they need to get rid of is the timeout rule as well. That's another thing that's killing the sport. I really like the way NASCAR do the equipment malfunction thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's great. I think that's where Waco need to go as well, because it's far too much. It's not really challenging anybody's conditioning. It's like the second that you get tired, you can call a timeout. Name another combat sport where you can call a timeout. There's no other combat sport in the world where you can do that. So why are we doing it? Mm-hmm. I think if we clean those things up, then we've got a great chance of being more catching the eye of the spectators and being more spectator friendly. That's the way it's got to go, in my opinion.
And that's what I'm all about. Like, everything that I preach is, I do a lot of the commentating for the shows over here. And that's something that I talk about on this podcast all the time, is that, a lot of fighters become upset that fighting doesn't have more of a presence on like the night show. Night shows are predominantly forms and weapons with some point fighting mixed in. And I think a big part of the reason for that, especially in night shows that may be televised, right, is because it's hard to televise point fighting properly, right? Yeah. And there's a few things that I think that we can do. These rule changes that you're bringing up are an excellent point, because I'm somebody, I want there to be more point fighting in the show, right? This is the guy that was a career weapons competitor saying, I want there to be more point fighting in the shows, because I think that the things that happen in point fighting are a spectacle. I think that it can be a good spectator sport.
Absolutely.
But you're right, there are certain actions that need to be taken to make it a better spectator sport, make it so where somebody's not just going down, calling timeout. I agree. I love the fact that NASCAR implemented that equipment malfunction rule. I think that was a really, really good adjustment that they made. And I want to get your opinion on one other rule that I've gotten mixed feelings about it when I pitch this rule out there. But I think that in the finals, right, and I would venture to say just in the night show, so if they take the semifinals to the show, or if it's just the final, whatever, if it is a fight that is happening in the nighttime show, I think that a coach should be allowed a challenge flag. And what I mean by that is, number one, from a broadcasting standpoint, you have to have slow motion replay. Because a big problem with point fighting is the average spectator sees two people crash into each other and they see judges' hands fly everywhere and they got no idea what just happened because they didn't see any techniques. They just saw two people smash together, right? Whereas if, from a broadcasting standpoint, you're able to show that slow motion replay and you can see the punch coming through, that's going to make it much easier to understand what the judges are seeing on these clashes, right?
Right. I think that's great.
So where the challenge rule comes in, right, is if you have slow motion replay, you can't do this. The reason I say only in the night show is that if you do it in the divisions, the tournament's going to take 3 years to run, right? Because everybody's going to challenge everything. And no. So it would only be in the night show where you're going to have the replay capability. Hopefully we have it across the board long term, right? And you only get one of them per fight. It's not like in the NBA or the NFL where, like, if you win the challenge, then you get another one or something like that. No, you get one per fight. And the entire purpose is to add drama and also to make sure the calls get right. I mean, how many times are you in a close fight and it's those last 10 seconds and that last clash that happens to be in those last 10 seconds is going to make the difference? And it's one of those clashes that really should just be a clash, but then you get two judges that throw their hand up one way or the other, and all of a sudden, there goes the point that cost you the fight, right? Imagine if we could have that challenge flag where the fight depends on, hey, let's look at this replay, and we're going to see exactly who landed first. So not only do you add the drama for the spectators of like, oh, there's a challenge. Like that's always one of the best parts of like NFL games, right? It's the fourth quarter drive. You're trying to see if he caught it or not. And then it's a huge deal when the challenge result comes out, right? And so if you're able to do that with a point fight in those last 10, 15 seconds on those clashes that really matter, you get the call right more often because judges are human. They make mistakes, right? You get the call right more often, and you add that extra element of drama into the match. And some of the feedback that I've gotten on it is that like, well, point fighting was meant to be like, fast paced. And it's like, whatever that initial response is what it was meant to be. I've heard things like that, not wanting to break up the flow of the fight. But I think most of these challenges are going to be saved for the last 10 to 20 seconds anyway. So I've talked about it a lot. I've gotten on my soapbox about this idea to have slow motion replay and a challenge in the finals. This is probably the fourth or fifth time I've been on that soapbox, but I just want your opinion, right? When you hear me talk about that, is that something that you're like, heck yeah, sign me up? Or do you have hesitations about it?
No, I think that's a great idea, and it's a unique idea I've not heard before as well. So that's cool, Jackson. I really like it. It's we have the same thing over. They have VAR now, so all the calls and stuff, like there's a lot of offside goals and things like that first of all get allowed, and then they go back and watch the replays and they realize that it was offside, and it helps to keep the game fair. And I think for point fighting being as fast as it is as well, it's necessary to have slow motion replay if we can. And I think on those night shows in the big fights, in the semifinals or the finals, I think it would definitely be a great addition. Like you said, not just for the fighters, obviously getting the fair calls, but for a drama point of view, the spectators are going to love that as well. So yeah, I'm all for it, mate. I hope that happens.
Awesome. I'm glad that I've got your buy-in, man. That helps. But
definitely.
Anyway, and one thing, when we talk about rule changes and how we'd like to see this be one way or this be another way, one thing that I do want to make sure that we shout out here is on the part of both WACO and NASCA. Over the last couple of years, especially post-COVID, I've seen both leagues being very progressive and willing to try new things, to make changes. And a lot of times people don't see it because, that they have a negative experience at this tournament or that tournament, and then they get on social media and complain about it because they're upset. But really and truthfully, I think that the promoters of these events, both WACO and NASCA, they really are doing a better job of listening, right? I mean, social media has a bigger presence than it has ever had before. And they listen more than people realize, right? Which is why it makes it hard when people are out there, posting all kinds of negativity, because we rarely show an appreciation for the fact that promoters are doing their best, that they take on a lot of risks to run these tournaments, a lot of financial risk, a lot of liability, but they do it because they love it. There's no promoter that's not putting on a tournament because they don't love it. Like that's the reason promoters do what they do. Nobody is getting rich off of running a karate tournament, right? So I think that, they deserve a little bit more credit. And I think that as athletes, as people in the sport karate community, we should more consistently commend them for being willing to listen and make some of these changes. And I do think that we will see change across both leagues moving forward, as long as athletes like yourself, the top players in the sport, are vocal about it and most importantly, positive about it. There's a difference between complaining and discussing positive change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think definitely, I'm going to try my best at trying to clear these things up. I'm actually on one of the WACO committees as well, the athletes committee. I'm the chairman of the WACO Europe Athletes Committee. So quite regularly we get together, the committee do, and we talk about all of these issues, and we talk about it with the president and stuff like that. So and they're always great with it. They always want to try implement these things, because at the end of the day, we're the fighters, we're the ones that are having to abide by these rules. So we want to try and make them as good as we can for everyone. So
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm all about is an athlete's organization working hand in hand with the promoters to make the sport better, right? I think that partnership between the promoters and the athletes is something that's really important. Last thing, Elijah, because I don't want to keep you too long, but I wanted you to have the opportunity to share this message, because I know that there is some 8-9-year-old blue belt, red belt somewhere, right, that just watched that knockout on Karate Combat, and now they're saying, this is what I want to do. I want to be like Elijah. I want to make it to Karate Combat. I want to knock somebody out in under a minute, right? So what advice do you have for all the young people that may even be watching this show, right? What is it going to take to get there, and just what advice do you have for that journey?
Well, for the Karate Combat, I mean, I've been preparing for something like this for a very long time. So one of the things I would say is you need to make sure that you're training all around, not just within your main discipline, but branch out and do different types of training. Don't just do point fighting, don't just do forms, do everything. Do a bit of boxing, do a bit of Muay Thai, do a bit of jiu-jitsu, wrestling, all this stuff. Be open-minded. Don't just stick with what you know. Go out, find that information, train with the best coaches, train with the best guys. And then what you can do is you can put it all into a box, shake it up, see what you come out with. And usually it's something that's pretty good. So that's what I did. I was always open-minded with it. Even when people told me that, you shouldn't do this because it's going to mess with your point fighting. I never believed them. I always stuck to my own beliefs. And I always said that, if I'm good enough, then I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to transcend into different disciplines, no problem. So, that's what I'd say is, don't let anybody tell you that you can't go out and do different things, or that one thing is going to mess with the other, because that's nonsense. Try and feed your brain with as much information and as much knowledge as possible, wherever it comes from, and be open-minded.
Awesome message. And Elijah, thank you so much again for taking the time to come on the show. Congratulations again for the spectacular knockout. I know that we all can't wait to see you back in the pit once again with Karate Combat, as well as in some point fighting rings pretty soon. I know that I'm going to be tuning in to all three of those fights that you mentioned, Everill and Chris, for those 7 2-minute round point fights. That's going to be wild. Wishing you all the best, my man, and thank you again for coming on the show. As for the audience, thank you guys all for supporting the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. This show would not exist without your support. Thank you to Black Belt Magazine for hosting the show. This has been episode 128 of the Jackson Rudolph Podcast. I'm Jackson Rudolph, and I'll see you next time.